Welcome to Imprint, a podcast about creating a home and life you love. I'm Natalie Walton, an interior designer, stylist, and best-selling author focused on an holistic approach to homes. Each week, I'm sharing insights and interviews about the creative process to help you enhance both your interiors and well-being, as well as provide you with the tools and resources to make considered and sustainable choices with all that you create. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Imprint. If you have ever dreamed of running away and living in Italy like I do on a regular basis, you are going to love this episode because I have with me a guest who has done just that. I came across Aisling O'Regan when she joined the Styling Masterclass, and she was using the program to get beautiful images for her Airbnb. And her Airbnb is in the hills behind Tuscany, and she shares with us in today's episode about her journey from going and living in Dublin. She grew up in Ireland to making that big decision to actually go and live in Italy and then run her home as an Airbnb, and the journey that she's been on with that. So I am so inspired by this episode, and I really hope that you are too. It's a really fun conversation too about, really staying true to who you are and following the path that feels right for you. So please enjoy my interview and conversation with Aisling O'Regan. Hi, Aisling. I am so excited to have this conversation with you because you are living my dream. You are living in Italy. You're running an Airbnb in Italy. And I think this is a dream of so many people. So we met in Styling Masterclass quite a few years ago now. I've shared a little bit about you in the introduction, but I really want to unpack this journey because, like I said, I think that this is something that so many people, they have it on their bucket list or their wish list, and you've made it happen. So can you just introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself, where you grew up? I always like to start at the beginning because to try and get a little bit of an understanding of like, how did all these threads in your journey lead to where you are today? So can you just please share with the listeners a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, before we get into the kind of the big journey?
Okay, no problem. Good morning, Natalie from Italy, and it's very early here. I'm just about awake, so thank you so much for having me on this. I was amazed when you reached out, and yeah, happy to share as much as I can. I'm from Ireland. Grew up in Tipperary, right in the middle of Ireland. A very, sporting family background, which I clearly didn't inherit. So I went a completely opposite direction. I did go to matches and I supported my dad and my brothers, but I think I always found an excuse to go to my grandmother's where we would knit or sew or make and do, as I called it. And that was every weekend. As soon as school finished, I was in her house and would stay there all weekend and just do crafts and things. And my mother was the very same. She still does it now with her grandkids. So I guess there was always some kind of a creative thing for me. I definitely didn't go the sporting route like everybody else did. So though that was always during school, it was creative. For college, it was going to be something with art. I'll get to that in a minute. But I was actually thinking about this the other day, and I realized that I probably realized I was some kind of an entrepreneur when I was young without even realizing what it was at the time. Like, I remember discovering that my dad had a photocopier in his office and colored paper. So I started making e-zines they weren't e-zines at the time, little magazines, selling them to people in school, making a few 50p on the side. Then I created a character, Killer Cactus, with a little cactus badge with a bandana, made those, sold them to people in school. In my teenage years, I made handbags and sold them to friends of families and things like that. So there was always something creative. And then when it came to what I was doing after school, my parents were very supportive if I wanted to go the art route, but my dad was very adamant it had to be something I could get a job out of afterwards. So do art, but I'm not a good painter, so I was never going to be an artist. So I'd never heard of graphic design. I spoke to my art teacher and guidance, and they told me about graphic design, which I worked on a portfolio with my art teacher, and we did that. And I applied for art college, and I did graphic design for 3 years in a college in the middle of Ireland. And then after that, went to Dublin and was in Dublin working for 21 years. I met my now husband, just before I started college. So he came to Dublin a couple of years after I moved there. And yeah, I mean, we just lived the city life. It was great. But there was always, will we do something else? And actually, we had a recession in Ireland, and we thought, we'd really good jobs. What happens if we lose these jobs? Could we work together on something else? What would that look like? So we had been to Paris, and we'd gone to Amsterdam, and we were blown away by markets. And at the time, all industrial design was really popular in those cities, but we didn't see it in Ireland at all. We didn't see it in Dublin. So we thought about, what if we could do something like that? So we started to source vintage lighting and industrial lighting, and we would repair it. And again, it was one that, like, I'm very bad for talking about, we're going to do this, and then we don't do it. So I actually booked us a place at a market one Sunday morning with no stock, no supplies, anything, and just said, right, we're going to stop talking and just do it this time. So we did. We got some stock together, and we did our first market. It was fine. People were interested. But we did that for maybe 2 years, setting up markets, and then privately to some commercial venues in Dublin where the lights are still now. And it was really, really interesting. We loved it. But that started the ball of, what about doing something else? And yes, it's great to be working full time and having good careers, but if we needed to pivot, what could we do? So we loved doing that. And I think it gave this new interest in interiors that we kind of already had, and sourcing. I mean, I loved going online, or either online and finding things, or actually going to markets. And now that we're here in Italy, it's incredible. I was always known in the family as the one that was a little bit different. And at one point, my parents joked, and it's not really a joke, but they kind of joked that I was adopted because I went a completely different path to everybody else. And I actually believed it for years. But yeah, so I guess just going that a little bit different, but then we started to talk about Italy. And again, it was like this, we have to either action it or just stop talking about it, because people don't want to hear us continuously talking about it. And we went to Africa, I think in 2001, and for a month, a very overland truck tour, very rough and ready. But it was absolutely incredible. And when we got back, we were ready to get rid of TVs, phones. We wanted just absolutely nothing in our lives. We just wanted, it was so simple. It was amazing. And again, I think that sparked some sort of, okay, well, there is more than the materialistic and the city living, and there could be something else out there. So we did think about leaving jobs, leaving careers, and just going traveling. But kind of thought we were at a stage in our careers that if we were to do that, how long would we do it for? And when we come back, what age are we again starting from? So instead we decided we would travel as much as we could. And the initial idea was we would try and do every city in Europe, or as many cities in Europe as we could. We went to Italy, and that's that. We just kept coming back. And yeah, it kind of started from there.
I just want to ask you, before we kind of get into this Italian chapter, that thing that you mentioned about that, you were so different to your family, and I presume as well, so different to people in your community as well, like where you were, certainly when you were growing up,
Yeah.
and then maybe even when you were in Dublin as well. What, like that sort of thing of people sort of saying like, you're so different to us, and did you have something within yourself that you sort of thought, well, yes, maybe I am, but I'm going to embrace who I am? Or what was your journey with that experience? Because I think lots of people go through this where, they live in a town or they live somewhere and they feel like a little bit like the odd one out or the kind of the quirky one or,
Mm,
and, but how did you
yeah.
stay true to your dreams? Because some people just end up, squashing their dreams and thinking, okay, I'm just going to keep quiet and I'm just going to
Mm,
go undercover almost. What
yeah,
was
yeah,
that
yeah,
journey like
true.
for you?
I guess it was probably because my family were okay. Like, and when I say I was a bit different, I mean, I'm not talking crazily different. It's just that I went a different, I suppose, path to other people. And I mean, I didn't dress outrageous, but I do recall one time wearing like flared trousers and platform shoes, and a friend's mother, being absolutely horrified and telling her she couldn't be around me anymore. And that's just clothing, like crazy, crazy. I mean, I didn't have pink hair. I didn't have piercings all over my body. It was just something so small as that. And we were a small town, so you know, I suppose I stood out. Not that I even stood out, but it was just different for some people. Why would I dress like that? And I'm not even sure I wasn't dressing to stand out. I just I even like I liked fashion, and I liked just, even now I'd put something on and I know someone's like, oof, but if I put it on, it's sometimes it's just because it's fun. It could be a big flouncy dress, and it's just, if you feel good in it and it's fun, that's what I like. But yeah, I think probably like my family embraced it. And again, I don't want to make it sound like it was a big thing, but they would just always, like my sister would say, I remember one day I could see her looking at me. We were at an event, and I'm like, what are you're talking about me? What are you saying? And she just said, I love that you're just sitting there in a big dress and a pair of boots and you look so comfy and it's just you. And that was, I suppose that's it. As I said, it wasn't a huge, big, I didn't stand out for any major reason, but yeah, I think maybe because family were just like, go for it. As I said, they always supported what I did. Like we got married differently. We don't have children. We would, you know, my dad would always say that was just you. You were always just a bit different to the rest of us.
I mean, sometimes it's not about being like crazy out there, but I think it can be about the
Yeah.
context of it. Like you say, with
Mm,
people in the community or, parents, friends, and they're kind of like looking at you a little bit strange. And, they can be like,
mm,
my dad used to have this saying of like a death of 1,000 paper cuts, like that idea of like sometimes it can be, people's dreams can get squashed because it's just all those little like,
yes.
like, look at what she's wearing or who does she think she is or
Mm,
what is she doing, and
yeah,
those kind of things. Like people like people to be in containers and boxes that like makes them feel
exactly.
comfortable about their lives because it's kind of discomfort for them because it's like, what's
Exactly.
going on here? So I think, like I said, a lot of people come across that and have to sort of find that confidence
Mm,
within themselves to say, you know what? Yeah, maybe I am a little bit different, but this is who I am and I'm going to just live the life that I
exactly.
want.
Yeah. And I'm not sure confidence, yes, but I think maybe with me, I'm stubborn. So I would have to prove those people wrong. And that's probably my point, my take on it. I had to do it then because once I had said I was doing something, and you get I just have to go for it then.
Well, that works too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Stubborn.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to Italy. And as you mentioned, you said that you went there and then you kept going back. And so at what point did you sort of think, well, maybe we could move there?
Yeah.
And then at what point in that equation, was it always to move there and run an Airbnb, or was it maybe to move there and do other kind of work? Like, how did that all come about?
I think initially it was, well, when we started to look, it was in, I think 2006, and we were living in Dublin. It was crazy price wise for property, but everybody was buying property. And again, the norm, like people would say to us, you're crazy. You don't have a car. You need to buy a house. What are you doing? So we thought, okay, maybe it's time to do what everybody else is doing. And we looked, and I don't think we have great hindsight or something, but just it didn't click. Like we were looking at small little cottages that were, €500,000 and still needed work. And it was really, it was really tough. Like it was heartbreaking because we thought, okay, this is what we should be doing. And again, in hindsight, if we had bought, we would now have a property in Dublin that would probably make us money, but we didn't. Um, and we had, at that point, the dream was we would buy a place in Italy to retire to. It was like way down the road. We would go there on holidays until then. With one evening we were talking, Keith had gone to look at an apartment and it was just, crazy. And we were a bit disillusioned and we thought, well, why don't we maybe we can buy in Italy now. So we started thinking about it and talking about it lots. And again, it became one of those, when are you doing it? And we actually told nobody, because it was going to be, yes, we did it. We wanted to wait for that. And plus we had no idea if it would even work. I mean, we started to go online like in 2006, 2007, really bad websites and really bad, like, you would find an estate agent and I would email them and we would arrange to come over and look at 10 houses and they'd have the keys for 2 or 4 would be gone and this kind of it. So we had no, there was no time period for us. It was just, let's see, does this work? I mean, we actually didn't even have the money to do it. So that was another thing, how this even works. We had obviously watched all these TV shows where it's a disaster for people. So we really didn't think it would work, but we were trying because we'd been talking about it. So I think we came over and back maybe for a year and a half to 2 years, seeing a few properties. We had been to Lucca and we'd been to Florence first and loved Florence. And then we'd been to Lucca, which is absolutely, absolutely beautiful. But still a city. So not what we wanted. Funny enough, I don't know if we had a tick list of location. It was just to be, at the time, it was to be so different to Dublin and the city. That's kind of one of the criteria. So we would come, meet an estate agent, have no idea of the villages or where she was taking us. And we would get in her car, drive around the village, see a house, drive into the village. And we actually came to this village previously and looked at a different house, which we just thought, no. And the drive up to this village is just crazy. So nothing clicked. I think maybe a couple of months later, we found ourselves back in the same village, not realizing it was the same village. It was a different day. We noticed there was a restaurant. The drive seemed different. And we came into this house and it was just, I mean, it was an old house, but it was ready to go. We almost bought one previously with a very pushy estate agent and we signed money over nearly, like we nearly went so far with it and had a panic when we got back to Dublin because it was a full renovation and we just weren't able for that. So this house was ready to go. We walked in, we tried to be really cool. The agent opened all the windows and we saw those views and it was just, like, yeah, we were trying to be really, really cool about it. It didn't work. So we saw the house in March and it was a horrible wet day. I mean, when it rains here, it just pours down the mountain and they've got these cobblestone paths with actually cut out so the rain can just flow the whole way down. It was miserable. And we came back a few days later and the sun was shining and it was just beautiful. And then we were quite fortunate. We didn't realize at the time, but the woman that we were buying the house from, the owner, was actually the estate agent. We didn't realize at the time it was her house she was actually selling. So I'm not sure if that helped the process along quicker, but we saw the house in March and we got the keys in July, which was incredible. And that included we got a mortgage with a bank here and everything, because as I said, we didn't even have money to do this. So it was absolutely nuts that it actually worked. But yeah, so we bought the house in July 2006.
Okay, so some quick practical questions. So one, could you speak Italian before you started on this journey?
No. We at the we've kind of come a bit backwards there. At the time, because we were loving Italy, we had gone and we had done a few Italian courses in Dublin, and we were great when we came to Italy because we would speak it. But then back in Dublin, we didn't. So no Italian.
The other thing is, so when you started looking, so I should say as well, so is it Northwest Italy is that the region? Which region is it in?
We're in Tuscany, so it's North Tuscany.
Right. Okay. And so when you were looking for your house, was it, and you're obviously going through this process of getting this more, like, are you thinking that at that point you're going to put it on Airbnb, or were you just thinking we're going to live there and do our work there? Or rent it out?
Yeah, and we weren't even thinking. Yeah, we weren't even thinking of working at the time. Definitely not Airbnb. It was just going to be down the road retirement, and if we can retire early, great. Yeah, it was never to be a rental. That kind of came later when we started to actually think about moving here. we started to do Airbnb from Dublin. We weren't here at the time, as an income, thinking, right, if we want to move here, we need to save as much as we can. There's a house sitting there doing nothing. So let's see, does that work?
Okay.
So that's the first time I think we did it, was 2017, maybe.
Okay. So like you said, and you got a mortgage with an Italian bank, is that right?
Mm.
Was that easy,
Yeah.
or what
Yeah.
was that like?
I you see, I don't know. It's incredible that this. I mean, I go back and I find old emails, and yeah. So I think through the estate agent, she helped us out a lot. Once we decided we wanted to buy it, we had, obviously we didn't speak Italian, so we set up power of attorney, so someone could sign documents for us. We did sign the final documents ourselves. We were here, but yeah, she put us in touch with an English speaking woman at this. It was an Italian branch of Barclays Bank, which I don't think is there anymore. And it was just all through emails and fax, like faxing documents, which is crazy. And then just bank statements and references and things like that. And yeah, it like incredibly happened very quick.
Were you
really quick?
Were you nervous at all during this process, like this buying process? Because obviously, like you say, your Italian wasn't, I mean, I'm sure you were like a few words or conversational.
Yeah.
I mean, I studied Italian for a few years, and like, I can throw together some sentences and things like that. But, obviously signing legal documents and signing over your power of attorney, like, was there a point where you were like, oh my gosh, like this could go so wrong?
I don't know if it was ever a fear that it would go wrong. I think it was always just, yeah, this is too good to be true, or this just doesn't feel right. This is, dare I say, too easy. Because when we were speaking about it, we kind of talked to people and said, oh, no, this is going to take years. Like, this is Italy, of course. And everybody told us red tape, documents, and they love a document, and they love 50-page documents and a good staple. But yeah, I don't think it was fear. I think it was just always like, this could stop at any minute now. It was crazy.
Yeah, so kind of like not counting your chickens before they'd hatch sort of thing. So
exactly. Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like now looking back on it, do you have the viewpoint that like it was meant to be? Like my mom has this theory, like she's always like, it was meant to, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Like, do you feel like it was meant to be with this? Like, because it goes so smoothly?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think back then it was probably meant to be. Like I actually, the year that we bought the house, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease and had been quite ill. And then, like, I remember one time being in hospital and really wanting to get out. And the nurse was like, well, you're so eager to get out. I was like, oh, I'm going to my new house in Italy. And I think it gave us a very different, suddenly we wanted to slow things down. It was more about, like, it was a turning point. It was more about work. Like, we would come here and, we joked at the time that we could come here, close the door behind us, and nobody even knew we were here. That's different now because we've got so many friends here. But it came at a really good time. And I think it changed the value in life. I think that we realized it is okay to do something different and slow it down a little bit. Yeah. So I think it was the right time, definitely. And then also just before we moved about 6 months before COVID. And I mean, we were in a 1-bed apartment in Dublin city centre. So that would have been chaos. So yeah, I think the timing has always been right.
And so as part of this journey, when you actually did decide to move, what was the sort of the tipping point for, like, was it getting sick and kind of having that point of like, okay, we need to do something different and slow down?
Because,
or what was the tipping point to actually kind of going, okay, let's move there now?
No, because like, I mean, I've lived with it and I haven't been sick. Thankfully, it's all in remission. But again, I think around 2017, 2018, we kind of really started talking about, are we going to move to Italy? And like, I'm not sure how, but it suddenly became let's not wait until we retire. Like, what are we waiting for? Could we do this? Remote working really wasn't a thing at the time, but I worked a day job and then I worked freelance kind of in the evenings at the weekends. So I was used to being anywhere with my laptop and working. When we kind of started to think about it, we were sort of at a place, I'd say, work-wise and mental-wise, that it just once we started to have that conversation, it felt more like, what are we waiting for? So we kind of put a plan in place to save as much as we could. I actually did get very sick again in 2018. And then I think after that, it was like, right, let's just, if we're going to do this, again, back to this, we need to stop talking about it. If we're going to do it, do it. And I think in the end, maybe not that we rushed it, but I wonder, we could have waited another 5 years and saved more money, and we could have had businesses up and running. I was really just starting out. But it again, back to timing, because if we hadn't moved, the following year was COVID, and we would have had 3 years of not going anywhere, and then life changes again. So for some reason, making that decision and finally saying, right, stop talking and let's just do it, it was April 2019, and it was the right time.
Okay. And so you decide, let's do it, let's move. So what was the plan? What was the plan for jobs and work and all of those things? And like you said, this is kind of before, remote working was much of a thing.
I know.
And what was your partner doing for his work as well?
Well, he was working in an office space, so he wasn't aligned. So he actually had left his job. And I technically, left my full-time job as well. I did do some work with company remotely when I got here. There was a plan, but I mean, we strangely left that first year with, savings to look, we're good this year anyway. I had work coming in. It was pretty good. Keith didn't, but he got a job in May, which was brilliant. He reached out to a company that he'd worked with before in the US, and he got remote working with them, which was great. So even though we had a plan, it was, very loose. But I think I think once we got that urge, and I always had, in my head, I always had a look, the house is going nowhere. If we do this and we feel it's not right, we just go home, we go back, we get full-time jobs again, and we give it a try again and another time. I didn't ever feel like it was going to be a failure if it wasn't perfect. So it sounds strange, but something was overriding all those. We didn't have every duck in a row, if that's the saying, but something very strong. There was a pull that it was the right time to do it, which is, we just went for it.
Yeah. Okay. And so what was that experience like then do you recall when you kind of first arrived there and okay, this is it. This is our new life.
I know. Yeah. I'm of course, in our true style, we gave ourselves a month to pack up Dublin. We thought, okay, it's a 1-bed apartment. It's fine. And it was like the last 2 weeks of a dash panic. We sold loads of our beautiful mid-century furniture. We gave stuff away. We had a truck organized to drive across with some of our things, but completely miscalculated the size of the truck, and we kind of filled everything we had in it, but we brought a handful of things. So I mean, immediately getting here, it just, mountain life just started. So we flew, and the truck arrived the following day. He could come halfway up the mountain, so he just parked where he could. His deal was that he would drive the truck, but he wasn't going to unload it. So we asked 2 guys here in the village with a little truck. So they went to the big truck, unloaded all our things, brought to the house. I had everything color coded, so there was a basement box, a house box, bring it straight into the kitchen box. So the guys were brilliant. They did all that for us. But yeah, I mean, it absolutely took me a couple of weeks, maybe even more, to just adjust. The first morning, Keith was downstairs in boots and shorts, and he was just ready to live on the mountain chopping wood. Whereas I really missed small things. I would walk to work. It was a 30-minute walk. I would listen to a podcast. I would maybe get a coffee on the way, and that was a routine. So I really struggled with not having a routine straight away when we got here. My rule was that I was getting up every day, getting dressed, as if I was going to the office, as if I was going to work. And even though I was coming down to work at the kitchen table, that was the plan. Every day I had to. So once I got some kind of a routine, I mean, I settled. And once the summer came, and then, the one of the big moments for me, the realization was, okay, this is good, was I think, a sunny day, and I had worked all morning, and I stopped for lunch, and I thought, I just want to sit here for just another hour after lunch. And I could do that because it was my time. It wasn't an employee or an employer saying, back in, your lunch break is over, which I remembered in Dublin. So that was, for me, it was a point of, this is again, making our own rules. And if we can do it, if we can work, if we can pay the bills, then yeah, we can do this.
Can you just describe the house to our listeners? Because I mean, I'm looking at you. We've kind of got a video on so we can chat to each other. And I've seen
Yeah.
many beautiful photos, obviously, through your work in the Styling Masterclass and through your Instagram. And we'll share links to all of that in the show notes and on the website.
Okay.
But can you just describe like the age of the building, the style of the building, the size of the building, how many rooms, so they can get a bit of an idea of what it looks like, and maybe a little bit about the village as
Yeah,
well.
sure. So the village is called Vico Panchalorum. It's I suppose there's a church in it that's 11th century, so it's very old, and it's like that scene that you see and you don't think it's real, where it's just literally perched on the side of a mountain. It's incredible, and so it's all through the village is little windy paths. There's no cars in the village. You park around the outskirts. Our house is it's kind of in 3 levels. So our house is probably in the middle. It's at least 400 years old. 4 stories, like a brick building. Sorry, not bricks, old stone building. 4 floors. We've got a basement underneath, which is amazing. We've got so much storage down there. We've got like our washing machine, things like that, wood storage, which is important in the winter. And then we've got a small terrace area with a pergola and a grapevine, which is supposed to be the oldest grapevine in the village. It's incredible. It's actually just growing out of the wall. It's unreal. Then we've got our first floor is a living room, kitchen. Then we go to bedroom, 2 bathrooms, and on the top floor we have another 2 bedrooms. Yeah, so it's like, it's funny because, as I said, when we came here first, it was so quiet, and it was this idea of coming here and nobody would even know. Now we realize we're like in the town centre, this house, and we're on a main kind of pathway. So on a Sunday is very busy here, and like everybody comes for Sunday lunch in the restaurant. So, and they all go for a little passeggiata afterwards, which is like a stroll to the village, and you're just sitting under the grapevine with your book, and you get a ciao, buongiorno, and you're like, God, I'm just getting into my book. But sometimes in the summer when it's busy, you do kind of complain, but no, it's incredible. I mean, we're in it's a really good spot, and all our views are all our windows are facing the amazing views, which is, yeah, incredible. It's a good spot.
And can you just describe the views, the mountain views of like, because that is such a beautiful feature of the house. And did they get snow in winter as well?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it literally is a mountain right in front of the window. And it's incredible because as it changed with the seasons, it actually sometimes looks like you just walk past the window and go, wow, that just got closer. It looks like it's incredible. Yeah, we do get snow. Not so much the last year or two. The first year we were here was really heavy. We were like 4 days without electricity, so cooking on gas with head torches, and was all very romantic, reading by candlelight. And then it was early January, and like January the 5th, I had clients back in work asking me where I am, and I'm like, I can't work by candlelight, can't charge my laptop. So things like that do happen. I mean, we've been without power a few times. Recently, though, when it happens, they've started to bring generators up. So it is, it is all very idyllic, but it is quite remote. When things like that happen, it's a bit, oops. You could be without power for a couple of days, but usually they're pretty good to sort it out.
And I'm just curious, in the village, are they basically all locals that are living in the village, or is it a little bit of a touristy village? Or what are people doing who live there? Do they go to work in a local town or a city, or paint a picture of the village and village life a little bit?
So I think when we moved here, the population was 90 people, and then we became 92, and then someone sadly passed away, so we went back to 90, 91, and then it's so year round, it's mostly Italians, and there's quite an elderly population here, so a lot don't work. some people that younger people that are here do, like there's still kids going to the local schools. People would travel to the nearest town to work. And then there are so many people that have bought houses here over the years. Like one of the first people we know of, and we've just realized recently he's not actually the first, is a good friend of ours, a Norwegian guy. He bought his house here, I think, when he was in his early 20s. And I don't even know how he found it. But in the summer, there are Norwegians, Australians, English, American, South African, Polish, German. It's incredible, the people that own houses here. And with a lot of people, it's like there are a lot of Australians that have homes here, and they all are here because one guy found a house here, they came to visit, and then they all buy houses, which is happens with a lot of people. Same with the Norwegians. And again, back to, we didn't know any of that which is strange because we bought based on a feeling for the village and the house, and we've met friends after the fact. So we didn't know about any of this community or these expats when we bought the house here. But yeah, it makes very interesting get-togethers in the summer and conversations. And but it, again, I joke at Keith because he will spend the summer looking out the window at cars rolling in and shouting at them to leave the village. But like we soak it up because October comes then and it is a lot quieter again. So I like it. I think it's a good balance. I mean, it's good for the village. The restaurant is incredible. Homemade pasta, Giovanna is amazing. But yeah, it is. I'm not even sure why it's such a touristy. And I say touristy. I mean, there's nothing in the village for people to do. They hike. They just sit, relax. A lot of our visitors will come and they probably use it as a base for day trips, and they'll go to Florence or they'll go to Lucca or the beach. And then a lot of people come and they just sit here and just take in the calm and it's good. It's good mix.
Sounds idyllic. So what point did you decide to put the place on Airbnb, and how do you manage that in terms of, are you living in part of the house and you're Airbnb a certain part of the house? Like, what does that look, and what's that journey been like?
I think the very first year we did it was probably, we were still in Dublin, and we had people here do the cleaning and do the handovers and everything. And it all went fine, but we weren't really, it wasn't really a thing we were interested in. It was kind of like, let's just try and make some money. So we were like, as long as there was a good review and people were happy, it was fine. It wasn't something we were passionate about or even really interested in. And then in 2019, we had just some people inquire, friends of friends, and, would your house be available? And we were here at the time, but we decided we had family weddings elsewhere in Italy and back in Ireland and everything. So we used it as a time to travel. So again, we would get it ready if we were here. If not, we would hand it over to somebody else to do it. And then last year we kind of thought, should we do it? And I mean, it's popular in the village. A lot of houses are Airbnb, and at the time, financially, we were like, right, we could do with this. So let's see, will it work? I mean, I went online and I had the photographs I had were just so bad, and I mean, clearly no real interest in trying to sell it. I mean, the pictures of the mountain were just grainy on grey days, and we really weren't trying to sell the house at all. So I did new pictures, and at the time I had just done your Styling Masterclass course, and honestly, I think that was a huge part of it, because I could suddenly walk into a room that I would look at the pictures I had taken, and then I would walk into the room and go, wow, I'm not even like, where's my feature? Where's my focal point? I'm not doing anything here with this picture. So that was a huge learning curve. It was brilliant. So I retook pictures and we redid the website. We changed the wording, and it was like this thing, and you hit go and you're waiting for a big explosion of what's going to happen now. So I think we put it live in, I think March maybe, and February, March last year when we did it, and the same this year, and then just bookings straight away came in. I mean, last year was we were booked. We did July, August, September last year, and some of October, and we booked through. This year we've got June, July, August, September, and some of October. So it's really, I don't know, like as that a lot of houses here do it successfully.
So do you stay in part of the house, like a certain area? Because obviously it sounds like a decent sized house, like, or do you just go and do stay somewhere else and do a holiday somewhere else?
No, so we actually are staying in a different house in the village. So there are some people that rent their house on Airbnb, and then there's some people that would kind of do a more of a long-term rental. And obviously, your Airbnb rental prices are completely different to someone who has an empty house and is like, oh yeah, go stay in my house. We're very fortunate to have friends like that who are like, look, my house is there, it's empty, it's doing nothing. You staying in it for the summer helps the house and helps us. So yeah, we have arrangements like that, which it's good. I mean, we're really fortunate to have people and that give us that offer. I mean, ideally, we at one point we have, as I said, we had the basement, and we did think at one stage of converting that into a kind of a little apartment that we would go down to. But again, it's nice to just, I think it's nice to walk away from the house once we have our first guest coming on the 15th, and I'm in the middle of painting the kitchen and it's chaos. So we will spend the next 10 days just getting ready. And I think when the first guests come, it's like, right, here's the key. It's difficult to walk away from the house. And especially when I think of the time period, it's a long time. But it's also good. It's like a little break from this house and this place, and just try something new. And the house we're going to is beautiful. So it'll be like a little mini holiday in the village.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the benefits of village life, and also makes you appreciate your own home, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's like, I think that, yeah,
exactly.
we always have that, sometimes you have these like, oh, this is annoying about the house and this and that and the other. And then you go away and then you come back and you're like, oh, it's actually so nice here. You realize that, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, every time we come in, when it's so clean, like from just before guests arrive, I always do a final walkthrough. I'm like, oh, this is nice. I want to stay here because we've taken all our stuff out and it looks so nice. But yeah, no, it's good. I never find it, I don't find it difficult, because I think we're so lucky with the people that come here as well. I mean, you're not getting someone coming here that is looking for a rock and roll party in a city center. They know what they're coming here for. I mean, even families with kids, that day one, if the kid is like, oh, this isn't for me, they just get in the car and in like an hour or less, they're at the beach. You're in Lucan. Like, it's funny, nearly everything is an hour around us, 40 minutes to an hour. So, it's good. I think we get very like-minded people that come here and stay here in the village. It's amazing. And yeah.
And so, now, how long have you been living there? How long would you say it's been?
So it's 5 years. Yep. It's 5 years. Yeah.
And so what would be some of the, I don't know, the biggest lessons that you've learned on this journey, or any advice that you would give to somebody who is saying like, I really want to move to Italy, and, like, what would you recommend, or I'm just curious, what would your advice be? Anything that you could share?
Yeah, probably get the language before you move, or as much of it as you can. It's funny because now I think of a longer plan. So at the time, our criteria was, just be different from Dublin. Now I'm like, it's a beautiful mountain village, but everything, you need to get in your car to go to the nearest village. You need to, if the restaurant's closed, there's nothing in our village. So I kind of think, absolutely love it here, but I would have put a bit more planning and thought into down the road. Would a little town be nicer? Would it give us more like coffee shops, another restaurant, or your pharmacy? So while we bought at the time and it suited us for the time, I think I would think a bit more long term, because these villages are beautiful, but they are uphills, they're remote. If there's problems with the weather, it affects everything. But yeah, I think go for it, because why not? It is beautiful. I mean, people are amazing. The culture is fantastic. And funny enough, for these beautiful Italian people, they think it can drive you mad at the same time. Absolutely. But yeah, it's so worth it. And I don't know what kind of advice I'm really giving. I think is just to think of it as a more long-term thing. Because I mean, the woman that we bought the house from, I mean, she had been here for a couple of years, but then she had a kid who needed to go to school, and you're getting a school bus at 5:30 in the morning. So there's lots of, these villages are absolutely beautiful and idyllic, but if you're doing it think a bit long term, I think, in any of these small towns in Italy, and the infrastructure and what exactly you need.
And any tips on running the Airbnb that you've found so far? Any lessons that you've learnt about that sort of whole process? Can be anything practical from like the sheets or
Um,
the this or the that or the, or even just sort of like some of the things that you do think they've helped, like getting the good photos or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the good pictures have helped. And I've done that recently for some other friends with houses in the village. Like I, it's a pet hate of mine to go onto an Airbnb and just see really bad pictures. Like it's doing no favors. And what we tried to do was in our pictures is give a sense of how they will enjoy the house, how they will live in the house. Like here's your outside space. Here's how you might have your evening drink or your coffee. Here's how you might have your coffee sitting at this window, and really try and paint a picture of the experience of being in the house. I think was what we were trying to capture. Um, I think for us being here and actually meeting guests has been incredible. And I know that's not a possibility for everybody, but a lot of our reviews have always been that we were here, we gave everything that they needed, but then we were in the background, we were backed off. That they always kind of said that we were great and that we were there, but that we were just enough in the background that we weren't in their face, which is really kind of interesting. Because I'm happy once guests arrive to go through everything and then look, there, it's yours, take it. We don't need to be walking past the house every hour and looking to see you're okay. Um, and we always kind of, I mean, we leave some personal, like not personal things, but we leave some of our art here and our sculptures and things we've collected. And I think people really enjoy that. They like just that it's a little bit different. It doesn't feel like a holiday home, I think. And it doesn't feel like an empty rental when they come in. And we always say to people within the first like 24 hours, any issues, let us know. I mean, the worst thing would be someone to check out and then tell you they had a problem with something on day two. So it's really handy that we are still in the village, because if people do have issues, we can sort it straight away. So that kind of personal touch has been really, really good, being able to do that.
And as you mentioned, we came into contact when you joined the Styling Masterclass. You've touched on how that's helped you with
Mm.
creating, beautiful images for your Airbnb. What was some of the other kind of like big takeaways or lessons that you learned within the Styling Masterclass? Like if somebody was thinking about should I join or not, or like what was a benefit to you?
Absolutely, I would recommend someone would join. I think it was funny enough. It was something that I thought, oh, is this? I actually didn't even realize until before I did not styling masterclass that interior styling was a thing. Not that it was a thing, but that it had rules, but it had guidelines. It is actually. I mean, I would be walking around the house and I'm moving things, and now I absolutely just see them without even realizing. I think if you've any way an interest in interiors, or doing an Airbnb, or just want that little, like, I mean, I suppose when I joined your course, it was with Airbnb in mind, but I've realized it's completely, like, I've since got some small jobs, styling jobs from it. And it's absolutely something I'd love to pursue further. But I think, yeah, anyone that just has an interest in it and wants to just enhance even their own surroundings. Like we can all go and buy beautiful things and then just sit in our home and we don't know how to make it work in our home. Yeah, but also lots of things like, which I'm still working on, planning and timekeeping, and just, yeah, my biggest downfall are those things. But no, I think, and the like the knowledge you give is incredible within that course.
Oh.
No, I highly recommend it. I'm not making sense, I think, but yeah, I mean, I definitely think in terms of what we wanted to do here in our house, and I think initially it was for our home, but then I realized, again, back to even taking the pictures and staging them, they're not staged that they look fake. They're staged to how, as I said, the guests will use them, and I think that was really important. You're telling a story within the home, and they want to
Yeah,
be
it's all
part of
about
that.
that visual storytelling that we talk about within the course, like that,
Yes.
creating how you can create a
Mm,
visual story with what you've got and convey information and create a mood and a feel and all of those
exactly.
things. Yeah, so no, that's really really helpful.
Yeah.
I think people find that really helpful to hear. And since then, you've joined Design and Grow. So I know you're kind of
Like,
quite new within the program, but what's been your experience within the program so far?
again, I need to really just delve into it. I'm without making excuses. I've taken on some two huge jobs that have had like a deadline, a completion date of within a day of one another in July, which is nuts. But I mean, even initially or recently, I'm trying to work on my website, and I threw out kind of my bio and things like that, and the feedback and the support straight away was amazing. Like yourself and some other people messaged and said things that I hadn't even thought about. So I find it very difficult to work on my own business and sell what I have to sell and say what I have to say. But I think the support within that and the lessons within Design and Grow are absolutely really, really important, really good. I was really impressed. Like straight away, you guys were coming back to me saying things that I didn't even think of, and that they should have been the first things. So I think it's really good for me. It's going to be really good for just focus and just narrowing down what it is I'm trying to do and trying to say. So yeah, but support wise, brilliant so far.
I think that's so many business owners have that, don't you? Like, you're so in the weeds, in the thick of it, that you just
Oh,
can't kind of pull back and have that clarity of like, what is it that I'm trying to share
yeah,
about my product or service? With you, it's context of your graphic design, and like how can I communicate that to people, and
yeah,
how can I let them know what's my point of difference in the market in terms of how I work and all of those things. So getting
exactly.
clear on that, like we're so in it that we can't always see that. So to get that outside perspective can, I think,
Yeah,
be really helpful. So that's, really great to hear. Okay, let's move on to the quick
brilliant.
10, the final questions that I love to ask everyone. Um,
Hey,
you can do this. I know you can. Okay.
okay. I may have
That's
some
okay.
notes.
We understand. All right. First of all, which 5 words best describe you?
Oof. Okay, I'll say creative. Um, I think thoughtful, true, true to self, honest, and I'm going to put the last two words together. Bad timekeeping.
As we say in our family, yet, like my daughters will throw the word yet onto the end of it, like I'm not good at that yet, so bad timekeeping yet. I mean, obviously I know that doesn't make
Yeah,
grammatical sense, but it's like,
yeah,
it is
and it's
something you
it's
can improve and learn.
exactly. Well, I don't know. I've realized more and more recently that I've inherited from my dad. He's just the biggest fan of. He's even abbreviating it now to JIT, just in time. He's just, and that's definitely where it has come from. So I don't think I'm gonna shake it.
um, what's the best lesson that you've learned?
I think maybe, well, I always think it's never too late to try something new or to go for it. But I think to ask for help or to know when it's just becoming too much and or not overwhelming, and just to sometimes just talk it out with someone is
Yeah.
really, really good.
What's your proudest achievement?
Probably packing up life, safety of comfortable jobs, leaving family and coming here. Yeah, it worked. We one time we were in Luca and we were having a drink outside a bar, and this American woman sat at the table with us, and we just got chatting, and she asked about it, and we told her what we were after doing. It was the year we moved, and she was kind of amazed, and she just said, "And what's been the best thing?" And without even thinking, I just said that it worked. That's what's been the best thing.
What's been your best decision? Maybe the same thing or maybe something else?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, but buying our property in Italy because of the year, as I said, we had a lot of family, and not family, we had friends. Oh, you have to buy in Dublin in 2006. And a lot of our friends did. And then in 2007 in Dublin, there was this big property crash, and we had our house in Italy for a fraction of the price. So that's probably the best decision.
Who inspires you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I get inspiration from loads of places, but I think people that, what's that saying, march to the beat of their own drum. Just someone that does it a little bit different, that just goes for it. I mean, back to what we were saying earlier, I always thought going against the norm was not a good thing, and I used to make excuses. But No, people that just find their path and go
Yeah,
for
I
it.
mean, I think it's funny, like when you were talking earlier on about the clothing that you would wear and how, like your sister saying, like, I love that you just wear that dress with boots or whatever. And I remember for I think it was in relation to the Styling Masterclass, and I asked you to send a photo through, and you had this photo of you, and it was like I think a bright orange dress, and like brogue type shoes or black lace up shoes or something like that, and and this is what I mean about when I talk about like we've all got our own personal style, and I see you in your style, and I love it. Like I love your style for you, like it's so great, like it's amazing, like I wouldn't wear something that I
Yeah,
would feel it just wouldn't feel right on me, but I see it on you, and
I
it's
know.
like, it's like what you're wearing in this interview. Like you got this big collar. I've got a kind of similar collar on a dress, but it's all white, of course. But you got like a gingham, like
Yeah,
blue, and a big collar, and like, and I love that. Like I love when people embrace their own style. Like they're not trying to be like someone else, or they're not afraid to be
yeah,
who they are, or afraid to wear the clothes that actually they really love, or other people might think like, wow, I
yeah,
couldn't wear that, that's
yeah.
like too
Me too.
loud, or it's too this, or it's too whatever, X, Y, or Z.
Mm,
And yeah, I love that about you, is that like you just are you, and even like with the style of your interiors, and like I said, I'll share photos in the show notes, but that you've got all this mid-century furniture
mm,
in like an Italian home, and it's not expected. I think it's like you were really
mm.
embracing what you love, and hearing about going to the markets, like, again, like I'm always talking about embracing your story, and like
Yeah,
you've gone and done all that. Like that's part of who you are and your stories, to have these pieces. So yeah, it's so great to see.
yeah. And I think that was a big thing, because when we did buy the house, it was oh my gosh, when I look back at pictures, we just went for this whole and I won't even say rustic, because rustic can be really beautiful. It was like rustic meets country chic meets something else, grandma's house, because we just didn't see how mid-century would work in here, and we left all our bits behind. But then we stripped out the house, emptied the house to paint it and sandblast all the beams. And when it was empty, we just saw it completely differently. And then bit by bit moved in like a lamp or a chair, and thought, yeah, this can take
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah.
So glad we did. But I love how you always say that at the end of, I love that style
Yeah.
for you. Like I used to think that was when someone would say, "Oh, it's so you." I thought that was a negative thing, but it's not. I completely get it. I love that
Yeah,
look,
yeah.
but it's yeah on you.
Well,
Keep
I
it away
mean,
from
like,
me, but
but
so
can you
good on
imagine?
you.
Like, it just would not, like
Yeah,
bright orange on me. It's just gonna, it's just gonna not work. Like,
I
it's
know, no,
just,
I know.
I don't know. It just wouldn't work. But I like, remember seeing the outfit, you wearing that outfit, and I was like, oh, I love that. That's so much fun. Like, that's so amazing. But like, I don't want that for me, but
Mm,
like, I love it. Like, I love when people like,
exactly. No,
embrace,
I get
like, it's
that.
like I love Vivienne Westwood, like, how she would just do her own thing. And I mean, she still does, but like people who would just
Exactly.
embrace who they are. And it's like they're
Mm,
not apologetic. They're just completely like,
yeah.
yeah,
No, and they're comfortable. They're comfortable, and for me, that's the biggest thing. Like I would not dress, and again, I keep thinking I'm sound like I'm dressed like Vivienne Westwood. I didn't. It's not like that. But I would never dress if I wasn't comfortable in it. Like I have to own it. I have to feel it. Like this is me. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. And I love people like Vivienne Westwood that absolutely are so comfortable in that kind of in what they wear and how they carry it, and that's important.
what are you passionate about?
I think just living a good life. Yeah, just it doesn't have to be flamboyant. It doesn't have to be over the top. It has to feel right. Yeah, passionate about a good life, living a good life. Connection with family. Yeah, just simple.
What dream do you still want to fulfill?
We have been invited to visit Australia so many times with our friends. Um, and again, having all these different friends here from around the world, you do get invitations, and you're not sure, do I, don't I? But yeah, Australia I think is going to happen. I just have to keep on the plane for that long length of time. But that, and I would absolutely love to do a book of some of the homes here and the people that have bought them and renovated them. Because there's some incredible houses here. Like you just in this mountain village, you wouldn't believe it. beautiful. So I'd love to do a book on that.
Oh, I love that idea. And
Mm.
Australia too, of course.
Yeah.
What are you reading? What's on your bedside table or on your coffee table at the moment?
I read a lot of fiction. I follow an Instagram account, Bellatrist, and they do a book every month, and they're all so completely different. And I use it as I like using it as a kind of a guide to, oh, that sounds interesting. So I read a lot of the books they recommend, but I'm reading one at the minute. If I Survive You, I'm not going to remember the name, Jonathan S. Scoffey, and also slowly going through Joan Didion, The Year of Magical Thinking. So yeah, there's always one or two books beside the bed.
Yeah, I love that book. Can you just spell the name of that Instagram account?
Bellatrist, Bellletrist. It's like it's like an Instagram book club.
What are you listening to? You mentioned before that you would listen to podcasts on your walk to work in Dublin. Do you still listen to podcasts? If so, which ones do you enjoy listening to?
I do. Yours, obviously. I like, there's actually a podcast, it's a music-based one called Soundtracking. It's an English Edith Bowman, but I'm not the big music fan in the relationship, but I love they will speak to an actor in a movie or a TV show or the director, and they discuss how they came about the music for a particular movie. And it's really interesting. As something completely different, because obviously they play good music, but it's just really interesting. Like sometimes the one I listened to yesterday, the guy wrote the score without seeing the script. Sometimes they'll be showing the script and they'll write the score based on a chapter they've read or something. And I just find it really interesting. And then I listen to a lot of different design, business, branding podcasts. Varied.
And finally, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, I think they just go for it. Do it. Go, what's that again? Beat of your own drum. Yeah, just do it. Be true to yourself and just go for it.
That feels like a very fitting note to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I've really enjoyed learning more about it. I'm so inspired. I'm going to one day go and get that place in Italy. It's going to happen. And we will, as I said, we will add links to the show notes for your Airbnb and Instagram accounts and all of those things, so that if people fancy having a bit of an Italian holiday, then they can go and check that out. Yeah, thank you so much for joining and sharing your story on Imprint. Really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for asking me. I really enjoy this. So good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
All of the links and info for this episode are at nataliewalton.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can get a direct download of the latest episode. And I really appreciate when you take a minute to rate and review, as well as share the love with someone you know who might benefit from this episode, or on social media. If you'd like to access a range of free resources, come visit my website, nataliewalton.com. Thank you to Jaeger Media for producing this podcast. And I would also like to acknowledge the people of the Bundjalung Nation where it was recorded, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I look forward to connecting again soon. I'm Natalie Walton, and you've been listening to Imprint.